there is a skill and maybe a little bit of an art to writing a good thesis statement for a literary analysis paper. We're going to be looking at what's required and then how to make it better. So what's required in a thesis statement is the title of the song or the poem or the short story or whatever you're analyzing. So if you look, this is just one of the songs that you could have done. All poems, songs, and short stories are punctuated with quotation marks. So you need to have quotation marks around yours. Just as a note, if you were analyzing a book or something that was a larger work, that's when you would use italics. So this is the name of a short story. We're going to put quotation marks around it. You also have to have your author's name included in your thesis statement, and you have to have your stance. In other words, what is this paper about? How are you analyzing this? So here's an example. The song, ISIS, in quotation marks, by Bob Dylan describes the power of addiction. So we have our song title, we have our author or songwriter, and then we have our stance. One thing I want to point out is I use the word describes here. Avoid at all costs saying is about, as in the song is about the power of addiction. That's a weak way of saying what you're trying to talk about, and there are definitely better verbs that you can use. So how could I make this better, though? I have the 3 required elements, but it's not very interesting. So I'm going to add a contrasting phrase here. And my contrasting phrase is, despite its spiritual overtones. I think we talked about how the song comes in the midst of one of Bob Dylan's spiritual conversions, and there is some of that in there. But you might have seen that and decided that it was really about addiction. So you might even start your paragraph, your introductory paragraph off by talking about the spiritual overtones. But then you want to show the reader that that's not really what your essay is going to be about. So your thesis statement ends with, or your introduction ends with this thesis statement. So we've added this contrasting piece. Despite its spiritual overtones, the song ISIS by Bob Dylan describes the power of addiction. Here's another example. Margaret is not guilty of murder in the short happy life of Frances Macomber by Ernest Hemingway. So we have our title, we have our author, and then we have our stance, not guilty. All right? So how could we improve this? We can add another contrasting statement. Although Margaret despises her husband, she is not guilty of murder in the short happy life of Frances Macomber by Ernest Hemingway. Now I added the word Margaret to this contrasting statement, so I had to change it from her name to she here, so I didn't end up saying Margaret twice in one sentence. So again, you could start off your introduction talking about the obvious signs that Margaret, hated him and so forth, but that isn't enough to convict her. And the other thing I wanted to show you is that you don't have to have the title of your story and the author right in the beginning of your thesis, the way this ISIS one did, especially before I added that contrasting statement. It can be at the end as well. And that's it.